The message came just after dawn, a soft ping that cut through the quiet rhythm of my morning coffee. My phone screen glowed with an alert from my bank. Your loan of $90,000 has been successfully dispersed. For a moment, I froze, the words swimming in front of my eyes. I hadn't applied for any loan. I hadn't even spoken to my bank in weeks. At first I thought it was one of those scam messages, an amateur phishing attempt. But the sender ID was authentic, my bank's verified number. I opened my banking app and felt my stomach drop. There it was, $90,000 sitting in my account, along with a new loan agreement in my name. Everything was precise: the digital signature, the identification number, even the times. Whoever did this had intimate knowledge of how I worked. Years of investigating financial crimes had trained me to stay calm under pressure. I took a slow breath and forced myself into observation mode. Every detail mattered: the reference ID, the document format, the lender's name. But deep down, something twisted inside me. There was a strange familiarity to the data entries, as if the person behind them knew my personal patterns too well. My passwords were layered with security, my identity locked tighter than a vault. Only family could possibly know the one key that tied everything together: my mother's maiden name. I remembered her voice. Gentle but firm, teaching us as children, never let anyone touch your name. Your name is your life. She used to say that in our small house back in Lagos, where honesty was our family's pride. She was long gone now, but her words carried a weight that made this betrayal feel like a curse unfolding. I stared at the loan confirmation again. My reflection faintly mirrored on the phone screen. Whoever had done this wasn't just a thief, they wanted to bury me under my own identity. My phone buzzed again. This time a call from a colleague. "Officer Daniels, you seeing this?" he asked. His voice was sharp with curiosity. "Your name's showing up in the system for a flagged loan. You investigating something new?" I forced a chuckle. "Probably a glitch," I lied. "Let me look into it." The truth was, I couldn't afford anyone else touching this case. If word got out that a federal financial crimes expert had his identity stolen, it would be an internal disaster: career, suicide. I had to solve this myself, quietly, efficiently. I pulled out my encrypted laptop, logged into the Federal Transaction Monitoring System, and began tracing the loan's digital trail. Every transaction leaves fingerprints, IP logs, device codes, metadata clues that most fraudsters overlook. But this one didn't. Whoever they were, they had cleaned their tracks like a professional, except for one small detail: the security question attached to the application. "What is your mother's maiden name?" That single phrase stopped my breath. Only a handful of people knew that answer: my late mother, my father, and my sister. I leaned back in my chair, my pulse pounding against the stillness of the room. The faint smell of coffee felt suddenly bitter. My mind raced through possibilities, but only one name kept echoing louder, sharper, more impossible to ignore: my sister. I didn't want to believe it, not yet, but something inside me already knew. Memories began to flood in like old photographs: our childhood in the narrow streets of Lagos, where my sister and I used to race barefoot through the dust. She was always quick, always daring. I was the quiet one, the thinker, the boy who took apart radios to see how they worked. She was the dreamer, convinced that life owed her more than it gave. As we grew older, those differences hardened into distance. I left for university, then into the federal service, climbing my way through the Financial Crimes Division. She stayed behind for a while, then drifted into the unpredictable hustle of city life: small businesses, big ideas, and even bigger debts. Our last real conversation had been months ago. She'd called late one night, her voice trembling, asking if I could help her just this once. I told her I couldn't mix family with money anymore. She'd laughed, bitterly. "Must be nice being the honest one," she'd said before hanging up. I'd brushed it off then. Now those words felt like prophecy. I needed to be sure. Emotion couldn't guide this. Evidence had to. I began the next phase: quiet digital surveillance. Using restricted software, I cross-referenced the loan details against known devices tied to my network. A chill crawled down my spine as one address pinged back from a familiar source. Her apartment complex. Same Wi-Fi router ID, same timestamp range. But it was the small things that confirmed it. The signatures she'd forged. She'd tried to copy my digital style, but her looped K in con was too wide. I'd seen that same handwriting once on a birthday card she made for me when we were kids. I closed the file, sat back, and let silence fill the room. Betrayal doesn't always roar, it sometimes whispers, softly, through the things only love could teach a person. I thought of confronting her right away, but logic stopped me. I needed to hear her truth before the law did. If I went to my department now, she'd be finished criminal record, media scandal, maybe even jail time. Our family name would burn. Instead, I decided to pay her a visit, unannounced. I told myself it was just to check in, but my gut knew I was going hunting. That evening, I drove across the city. Her neighborhood was loud with the rhythm of lifehawkers calling, children shouting, music echoing from distant speakers. I parked outside her building and took a deep breath before climbing the narrow stairway. When she opened the door, she looked surprised but not guilty, at least not yet. Her hair was styled, her nails fresh, and the faint scent of new perfume filled the air. The apartment behind her looked brighter than I remembered. New curtains, new TV, everything too new for someone who'd been struggling. "Brother," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You came without calling." I smiled back. "I missed you," I lied. As I stepped inside, my eyes caught a sleek, expensive-looking purse on the table, still with a store tag. Something inside me twisted tighter. The game had begun. I sat on her couch, pretending to admire the decor. The place smelled like fresh paint and jasmine air freshener. A framed photo of us as kids sat on a new glass shelf, right beside a gold watch that glimmered too brightly to be anything but recent. My sister moved around the kitchen, fixing juice as if nothing was strange. "So," she said lightly, "you're finally visiting. What brings you to my side of town?" "Just work," I said, my eyes scanning the apartment discreetly. "Had a case nearby? Thought I'd surprise you?" She smiled, but her fingers trembled slightly as she poured the drink. My instincts caught every movement, the slight delay before she answered, the way her eyes darted when my phone buzzed. She was nervous. Maybe she didn't know I knew. But something in her already feared I might. As she handed me the glass, I took it but placed it down untouched. My phone vibrated again, a notification from the federal server I'd set to monitor the fraudulent account. The loan funds had been partially transferred, $30,000 gone already. Wired to an unregistered account with a proxy name. The transfer location matched this very neighborhood. I looked up at her, studying her face. She was humming now, pretending to tidy the counter, but the melody faltered when I asked, "How's business these days?" "Oh, she said, forcing a chuckle, trying to stay afloat. "It's not easy." I nodded. "New furniture, though, looks expensive." Her laugh came too quickly. "A friend helped out. I finally got lucky for once." "Lucky," I repeated softly, the word sharp between us. I noticed her new laptop on the coffee table. Its brand and model matched the device signature that accessed my loan documents. My heart clenched, but I kept my voice calm. "Mind if I use your Wi-Fi? Bad reception here?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Sure, go ahead." While she turned to the kitchen again, I opened my phone, quietly connecting to the network. The IP address popped up instantly, same as the one used in the loan application logs. My suspicion hardened into certainty. I slipped my hand into my pocket and activated my small voice recorder. Her voice, her reactions, her words, I needed them all. Not just as proof for the system, but as protection for the part of me that still couldn't believe she'd done this. "So," I said casually, "did you hear about that new loan scam going around? Some genius using stolen IDs to pull out big money." She froze. Her back was to me, but her shoulders stiffened. "Really?" she said after a pause, forcing a light tone. "People are crazy. Who'd be dumb enough to do that?" "Someone who knows the system," I said slowly. "Someone who knows how to hide. But not from me." Her hand faltered, knocking over a glass. The crash broke the silence like a confession. When she turned, her face was pale, her smile gone. "What are you saying?" she whispered. I stood, looking straight into her eyes. "You tell me." For a long second, the air between us was thick with everything unspoken, fear, guilt, love, and the terrible truth tying them all together. She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. That silence was louder than any confession. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. I could hear her breathing, shallow, uneven, and the faint buzz of the fridge humming in the corner. Her eyes flickered toward the door, then back to me, as if deciding whether to run or fight. I didn't move. I just stared at her, letting the weight of my gaze do the work. Years in investigation had taught me one thing. Sometimes the quiet breaks people faster than words ever could. Finally, she sank into the chair opposite me. "You think I did it," she said, voice low but trembling. "I don't think," I said coldly. "I know." Her lips parted, maybe to deny it, but the strength left her body. She slumped back, eyes darting to the floor. For a moment, she looked like a child again, the same little sister who used to cling to my hand crossing the street. But this wasn't the same girl. This was someone who'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. "Why?" I asked softly. "You had a choice. You always had me." Her face twisted with something between anger and shame. "You had everything," she snapped. "You're the golden one, the government man, the smart one, the one everyone calls a hero. I'm the failure, remember? The one who can't pay her rent without begging." I said nothing. Let her words hang heavy in the air. Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice kept rising. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just thought, if I could get a loan, start fresh, maybe open something small. I was going to pay it back before anyone found out." I shook my head slowly. "You didn't just take a loan, AMA. You stole a life, my name, my credit, my career." Her breath hitched. "I didn't think it would reach you," she whispered. "I thought you'd never notice." That cut deeper than she knew. She really believed I wouldn't notice something like that. After all the years I spent catching thieves, fraudsters, and hackers, my own sister thought she could outsmart me. I reached for the recorder in my pocket, stopping short. I couldn't press play, couldn't reduce her to evidence. "Not yet. You know what happens next, don't you?" I said quietly. Her face went white. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't report me. I'll fix it, I swear. Just give me time." My jaw tightened. "You don't fix fraud with promises. You fix it with truth." She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. The sound filled the small apartment like thunder. For a long time, I just stood there, torn between brother and investigator. When she finally looked up, her mascara streaked down her cheeks, she whispered, "If you turn me in, you destroy me, but if you don't, you destroy yourself." And she was right. The badge in my wallet suddenly felt heavier than ever, not a symbol of justice anymore, but a curse. I turned to leave. Her voice followed me, small and broken. "I'm sorry, brother." I didn't look back, because sorry wouldn't erase the $90,000, and it wouldn't heal the crack she'd just carved in my soul. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling above me felt like it was closing in, pressing down on the chaos inside my head. My sister's tears echoed in my mind, tangled with my own silence. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the moment she looked at me, the guilt, the fear, the small flicker of hope, that maybe, just maybe, I'd protect her again like I always did when we were young. But this wasn't a childhood mistake. This was a federal crime. By morning, I had made my decision. I needed to see how deep the damage went. I logged into the secured bureau system, accessing flagged identity theft cases. My name appeared twice, both linked to the same fraudulent network. One was the loan in question. The other, a smaller transaction routed through a shell company. Whoever handled the paperwork had knowledge of banking loopholes that wasn't her doing alone. That's when the fear turned to suspicion. If she wasn't acting alone, who was she working with? At 9 a.m., I walked into the office, keeping my face neutral. My colleague Daniels was waiting with a cup of coffee and a curious grin. "You look like hell," he said. "Something personal?" "Long night," I replied, forcing a smile. He nodded toward his screen. "You'll want to see this. There's been a spike in digital identity loans. Clean forgeries, too perfect. We're guessing an inside leak or someone with training." My stomach tightened. A network. That confirmed it. I excused myself and locked myself in my cubicle, reviewing the new data packet. There it was again, my sister's device ID, now linked to a second name on the account, Kemi Aidwale. I didn't know the name, but the profile screamed fake. Address untraceable. Number registered in another state. I called my sister that evening. She didn't pick up. I tried again. And again. No answer. By the fourth ring, her voicemail cut in. "Hey, it's AMA. Leave a message and maybe I'll call back, unless it's about money." The irony stung. I drove back to her apartment. The lights were off. A neighbor told me she'd left earlier with a man in a black car. My heart sank. This wasn't just about desperation anymore. She was in trouble, real trouble. I returned to my car, opened my laptop, and pinged her phone location using a bureau tracking code. It was risky, technically against protocol, but I didn't care. A small red dot blinked on the map. Miles away near the city's industrial district. That was when it hit me. She was either hiding or being used. I started the car. The city lights flashing across my windshield like silent warnings. The road ahead was empty. But my mind wasn't. I wasn't just chasing a criminal now. I was chasing my sister through the ruins of everything we once were. As I turned into the dark stretch leading toward the warehouses, one thought gripped me tight. If she didn't know who she was dealing with, this could end far worse than any prison. And if she did know, then she was already lost. The industrial district was eerily quiet when I arrived. Rusted warehouses loomed like forgotten beasts, their walls scarred with graffiti and time. I parked a few blocks away and moved on foot, keeping to the shadows. Years in investigation had sharpened my instincts. I could feel when something wasn't right. And tonight, everything felt wrong. Emma's phone signal led me to a dull gray building at the far end of the street. A flickering light blinked through the window, and the faint sound of voices carried through the night. I crept closer, keeping my head low. Inside, I saw her, my sister, standing beside a man in a leather jacket, tall, confident, with the kind of calm that comes from doing bad things too often. On the table between them were stacks of papers, several open laptops, and bundles of cash wrapped in rubber bands. I recognized the setup instantly. A classic laundering hub. Fast cash from identity theft, turned legitimate through fake businesses. You said your brother wouldn't interfere, the man growled. Aime's voice shook. He won't. He doesn't know anything. He smirked. Everyone knows something when the feds start knocking. You better pray he stays dumb. My hands curled into fists. She'd fallen deeper than I thought. I snapped a quick photo with my phone and backed away. But the gravel under my shoe betrayed me one small crunch that echoed louder than thunder. In that silence, the man's head jerked toward the door. Someone's out there. I ducked behind a crate just as the door burst open. His flashlight beam swept across the yard. My heart pounded in my throat. I waited for the beam to pass before slipping back toward my car. Once inside, I hit the ignition and drove off fast, tires screeching on the wet road. My phone buzzed an incoming message from an unknown number. I glanced down. If you care about her, stay out of it. That was all it said. No name, no location, just a warning. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, rage burning through me. Whoever this man was, he knew who I was, and he wasn't afraid. That made him dangerous. The next morning, I filed a partial report under a coded alias. I couldn't expose her yet, not until I knew everything, but I marked the operation under a new case name, Project Glassblood, because blood was all that tied us now. And it had turned fragile as glass. By evening, Daniels dropped by my desk. Heard you've been looking into some personal data breaches, he said, leaning casually. Need a hand? I hesitated, then nodded. Off the record. Together, we began digging into the aliases linked to that warehouse. One of them traced back to a known cyber syndicate we'd been chasing for months, the Ledger Ring. And now, it had my sister's fingerprints all over it. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion heavy in my chest. I wasn't sure which truth hurt more, that my sister had been used, or that she might have joined them willingly. Either way, this was no longer just family business, it was war. The following days moved like a storm that refused to settle. Every morning brought new files, new evidence, and new lies to peel back. My sister's digital trail was spreading like wildfire, different banks, different states, but the same unmistakable signature patterns. She wasn't just part of the scheme anymore. She was inside it, working the system like someone who had learned from the best. And that someone was me. Each transaction she touched bore traces of my own investigative methods, the timing gaps, the routing patterns, the way she used mismatched metadata to mislead automated flags. She had learned everything from watching me work all those years. I'd unknowingly trained her. One evening, as I reviewed data logs, Daniels dropped another bombshell. The Ledger Ring's being dismantled, he said. We've tracked one of their main operators. Guess what? Your sister's name came up again. She's transferring money for them. The air in the room thickened. Where is she now? I asked. Downtown. There's a sting operation tonight. I froze. I could feel my heartbeat against my ribs. I wanted to say something to stop it, but my voice betrayed me. She doesn't know who she's dealing with, I muttered. Daniels gave me a careful look. You're close to this one, aren't you? I forced my face still. Just another case. But it wasn't. It was the hardest one I'd ever had. By 9 p.m., I was stationed inside the surveillance van with the team. Through the flickering monitors, I watched my sister walk into a small cafe carrying a folder. The man from the warehouse sat waiting, his expression cold and commanding. She handed him the documents. Our team lead whispered, "We have confirmation. Move in on my mark." I held my breath. She looked nervous, her hands shook as she spoke. I did what you asked. The money's cleared. I just want out. The man leaned forward, his tone sharp. There is no out. That was the moment everything changed. The command came through. Go, go, go. Agents swarmed the cafe from every entrance. The man bolted for the back, but I was faster. I intercepted him in the alley, tackling him hard to the ground. He fought like a trapped animal, but I'd dealt with worse. Moments later, he was in cuffs, cursing in a language I didn't care to understand. I turned back toward the cafe. And there she was, AMA standing still, surrounded by officers. Her eyes met mine through the glass. For a heartbeat, I saw the little girl she once was, the one who'd promised to always stay by my side. Then her expression broke. Brother, she whispered, barely audible. As they took her away, no one in the van spoke on the drive back. Daniels sat across from me, watching carefully, but said nothing. Back at headquarters, the report printed out under my name. The case was officially closed. Subject identified, AMA Khan. Federal financial fraud, identity theft, aiding organized crime. I stared at the paper for a long time before signing it. My pen felt heavier than iron. Justice was done. But it didn't feel like victory, it felt like burying my own blood. The day after her arrest, the city felt quieter. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it accuses. I drove to the detention center early, the rising sun bleeding gold across the skyline. I told myself it was professional duty, that I needed her statement for the record. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about justice anymore. It was about goodbye. When they brought her into the small interview room, she looked nothing like the sister I remembered. Her hair was tied back loosely, her eyes hollow but still carrying that flicker of defiance. The orange jumpsuit swallowed her small frame. Yet somehow she stood with dignity, proud, even in shame. For a long time, we didn't speak. The sound of the ticking wall clock was louder than breath. Finally, she whispered, "You really turned me in." I swallowed hard. "You turned yourself in, AMA. I just stopped pretending you hadn't." Her lips quivered, but she didn't cry this time. "I thought you'd understand." "I do," I said quietly. "That's what hurts the most." She looked down, tracing the edge of the table with her fingers. "They used me, you know. That man, the one from the cafe, he promised to fix everything. I just wanted to get out of debt. I wanted to be free." I sighed. Freedom built on a lie always ends in chains. She flinched, and for a moment, neither of us could meet the other's eyes. After a while, she reached into her pocket and slid a folded note across the table. "I wrote something for you," she said. "I don't want you to hate me when this is all over." I hesitated, then took it. Inside, her handwriting trembled across the page. "You always chased criminals. I just wanted you to see me, even if it meant becoming one." That line crushed me. The guards signaled that time was up. I stood, heart heavy, unsure what to say. As they led her away, she looked back once, her eyes glistening. "I'm sorry, brother," she said softly. I wanted to say I forgave her, but the words wouldn't come. Maybe forgiveness wasn't ready yet. Maybe it never would be. Weeks passed. The case made the news. Federal expert's sister jailed in $90,000, fraud case. My colleagues avoided eye contact, unsure how to treat me. Some admired my integrity. Others whispered behind my back. I didn't care anymore. I used the pain to build something better. I proposed a reform policy to strengthen identity protection. Mandatory verification layers that could prevent families from tearing themselves apart the way mine had. The project passed, and I called it AMA's Law. Months later, I visited her again. This time, we talked like siblings, not cop and criminal. She told me she was learning bookkeeping in prison, trying to make peace with herself. For the first time, she smiled without guilt. As I left, she said, "You saved me, even when you destroyed me." Outside, the sky was breaking open with sunlight. I looked up and breathed, feeling the weight of everything we'd been through, the lies, the love, the lessons. And I realized something profound. The hardest crimes to solve aren't in the banks or the systems, they're the ones that happen in the heart.